So today we're going to be trying to fix the issues we built yesterday with our map here. So we're using a new tiled application to build our maps out so that we can like paint, up to 100 maps all at once and export them separately instead of hard coding the enums. So if we take a look, man, I am just jacking everything up today. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at what we did yesterday. We've got, I believe in our dependencies, we are pulling in all of these. So like we export from our tiled application each game map. Then if we take a look at how we're rendering them, let's take a look in our scene, because if we render the game map object, which this is actually not the one, we actually want to pull in the tiled map. Let's see if this shows us the correct screens. Okay, so see map row column is 2, 2. That means this tree's in the middle. We made a tree on the left if we walk left, and then a tree in the top left if up here. Now notice the transitions are jacked, but we land on the right. We land on the right map that we exported, but we have to fix the transitions. So if we could fix the transitions today, that would be really good. We can take a look at what we exported. We look at, we don't have tiled up and running, but let's do that. So this is the map, right? So like we have a 10 by 10 for now. I think the game needs to be a bit bigger than this, but we've got a 10 by 10. So these are the maps that we're currently putting in. This is 2, 2, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. So we need to keep in mind that the bottom row is where the HUD is, but we need it built out because during a transition you'll be able to see it, so we'll need to keep that. But we have to figure out how we're currently rendering the transitions so that we can render the correct scene transition. So right here, see how we render this next map? If there is a next map, we're rendering it. If I turn that off, let's see what happens. If we turn off the next map render, it doesn't do the shitty transition. It's still wrong, but it needs to scroll off, right? Oh god, geckos are killing me. Okay. And there's invisible things here. There's a tree stump here, an invisible tree here because of the collidable map objects, which we also have to figure out with this new export. But we're going to work on just the transition first, and if we can get that working, then we'll be in good shape. And then I think I'll feel comfortable shifting us off our old map system if we can get these transitions figured out. So I'm hoping we can get that done today. We know that the next map render is what's screwing this up. So if we take a look at what a next map is, a next map initializes as nil, but it becomes a current map because if we search for any usage of this next map, we assign it to be the current map row. Okay, so the current, yeah. So if we left transition, we're assigning the next map to be the map to the left of us. Okay, so I think what we have to do to get this to work is not the self.current map, but the tiled map. Let me think, because I think if we look at in our scene, we're rendering the scene view current map. Okay, so I think it's scene view current map and then do the arithmetic on here. I think that's going to be the magic sauce. So instead of the self.current map, the self current map isn't getting updated. Yeah, okay. So we have to figure out this self.current map in row. Yesterday we were trying to debug it and it was not working, so I put in the scene current map current row. So if we take that and we say this is the scene and this is the scene, and we do the old that. Okay, so this should be self.currentmap.row and self.currentmap.column. Now, I think these are jacked up. We give a different Y on both of those so we can actually read what we're doing here. Let's see. They're right here, and then okay. So the self-current map row is getting the correct values, so that's good. So instead of doing this, and maybe we do the old comment out so we can kind of get rid of that. Actually, I do want to see these still. Yeah, I'm a dummy. It's okay. So let's go see. We want our map to not be instantiated based on the current map column. This is a little confusing because what we're doing here, we're instantiating a map. Now, what are these first two arguments in a map? If we take a look at our map class, we'll see that it is just the row and column for the map. But see how the ID is getting set to the map, not the... Oh yeah, this is jacked up. Okay. So the map, what I'm calling the map is something that holds the entities, because the entities need to live in the map, because if we put entities in a map off screen, when we initiate that transition, they need to scroll onto screen and then start moving. So like the entities kind of have to be tethered to the map, and the map, there's only one scene instantiation, and the map holds both the current map and the next map. So I think, yeah, oh man. It's good that we're doing this now because we have to figure this out sooner than later. It'll be a lot easier to scale if we just do this shit now. So here's where we're doing the collidable map objects based on the tile ID, which is not right. So we have to do that different. Man, this is going to be a beast of a refactor, I think, to switch everything out. But okay, so the map, we're rendering sand as default, and then if there is a tile ID, then we're going to go ahead and insert the tile ID. I guess that's what it's doing. Then we're inserting the animations. Okay, this is crazy. Who wrote this? Who did this? Okay, and we're entering, okay. Oh god. Now, we could keep the entities in the map global table here, but I kind of want to change. Because if we look at our map declarations, our map used to be where we declare all this stuff, but now we're going to call it tiled map. So I think for now, I might just comment out all our old map declarations. And then we need to do this based on Okay, so what we're going to do is rename our tiled map to just map, because map makes most sense for what I'm trying to do. So we'll keep it map, and just up here, instead of doing the map stuff, we'll just change our tiled map logic into being map. And if once all that starts working, we can go ahead and just kill all the old map logic. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to substitute any tiled with nothing. And then same thing with here. You know, we can actually comment this out because now we're just map. I'm hoping this doesn't break anything. We'll see. Map 37 crashed, so. Yeah, we don't need this anymore. We'll have to figure out how to import this. Before we were deciding what was a collidable object based on its location in the master sheet. But we want to be able to draw what our collidable objects are. So, all right, 159, seen as we're crashing. This is why I say it was going to be a beast of a refactor, because we use map everywhere. Fuck. 159, why crash here? Collidable map objects, okay, is a nil value. But that's not on 159. That was in scene 159, okay. So we'll go check out our scene. Okay, 159. Yeah. We have to turn this off for now. Map object collision detection is what we call it. And then scene 189. Okay. We're crashing right here because this is tiled map, which is no longer a thing. We have it just map. Getting closer, let's see. Cool. All right, so we have no more collidable map objects. Our tiled map is now renamed to just map. And we still have the scene scrolling off. That's why our debugging stuff is scrolling off. But we are loading the correct scene, so now all we have to do is assign the next map to be equal to whatever the... How do we do that? Once we assign the next map... Oh, we're not even rendering the next map. Let's turn that on and see if we're actually assigning it correctly. So let's see. Fuck. Bad argument 2 in 141. Why bad argument 2? In what? In scene? Or in map? In map. Quad expected got nil. So 141 in map. Yeah, we don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want this either. We don't want to do this anymore. This was like to bypass getting us all that sand. Okay. So we're still not... Oh, there's the entities. Okay, so we're still not scrolling it correctly. But we do seem to be getting the proper map. So that's good. Okay. So let's figure out how to get the proper next map in our scene. So if we go to next map, here we go. We do assign our current map to be the next map. Here. What are we doing here? Why is this commented out? Current map row. Okay, no, yeah, that's jacked up. We don't want that. Next map gets nil. Okay, so where's the next part we use next map? Right here. Okay, so instead of an instantiation... Oh, no, that should be right. Let's look at our map render logic and make sure we're doing this correctly, because it looks like we have access to the right value. I just don't think we're rendering it. Yeah, we're not rendering shit for next map. So this is where we're rendering all the old values, but we need to reference... We need to draw what? We need to draw the current map. Hopefully with all this adjacent offset X is what will scroll it off the screen upon a scene transition here. So instead of this, you know, this for Y and X is because we were rendering every single tile in the old method, but now we're rendering whole scenes of tiles that we paint. So now all we should have to do is a lot like in our current scene. If we look at our scene, when we render the scene, we're saying map scene view draw. It should be the same thing. Like we should say, hey, go ahead and render the, not the current map, but the next maps row. But when we're in the next map, yeah, so map, right, so current map and next map are an instantiation of map. This is a map, what we're in right now. So we don't have a current map, but we do have a row and a column. So once this next map gets instantiated, we're gonna go ahead and try to say that we want to render this at our self.row and our self.column. So yes, this. Okay, so I think this will work. Well, let's see if it works. Okay, it's not working. It should be. Oh, we need the X offset. We need the X offset. I think we need to say, how do we pass in this adjacent offset X? Because I think if we were to print this up, we could at least see that, let's see, love.graphics.draw will say X offset is what? It is a self.adjacent offset X, that's what it is. And then we'll give it to be on the screen here. Let's see. I think that number, we're not even rendering it until that exists. We don't want draw here, we want print. Okay, so it should only render once we have one. Oh yeah, it's checked up. We need to... Yeah. That doesn't help us much. But we want to, hopefully, we've got to look up the parameters for love.graphics.draw so we can get this right. So it's a drawable, an X, a Y, an R. See, but we're not, the drawable it is itself. So that's kind of what I'm confused about. We're trying to, if this is the drawable, this is the X. That doesn't look right to me. I need to get soft wrapping on NeoVim here. 'Cause it's hard to read this. See, I shouldn't... I don't need this texture in quad. I wonder how... I just want this... Not the shear, but the X. I want to draw this at the adjacent offset X, not the real current X. So we're going to have to do something... I'm gonna say... Gosh, yeah, I don't know. Because you would think if we're rendering this here without the offset, it would pull up the next frame as soon as we initialize a scene transition. Oh, and it does. Okay. Okay, so we're close, but it needs to... And this is what I don't get. I feel like... if we put in the same exact object as the drawable, that feels so ugly to me. Because I'm trying to just draw the drawable, and then the quad is something that we would have to make. But if I just do that, will it still render tx a table value? See, and this is a colon draw, not a dot draw, so it might be different. It might be something to do with the tiled implementation. Hey, Magneton, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. Your floppy fish guy, pretty cool. Yeah, I missed the dance part knocker, sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to pass an argument to this colon draw function that we get from the STI library. So, I'm not exactly sure how to do that. We might have to Google some stuff. Simple tiled implementation. They could have come up with a better name than STI, for real. Yeah, we might have to just read the documentation like an adult here. Translate and scale arguments. Okay. So they do have a translate X. Okay. So we should be able to just translate by the X. Like so. If we put in our self.adjacent offset X, self.adjacent offset Y, maybe we'll get it going? No. It didn't crash though. Now I'm kind of curious if we just put like 20 in here. If that changes anything. It did. It did fuck shit up. So, how come we can't... See, and this is like some weird stuff we were doing here. We were adding the adjacent offset X, but we are also multiplying by whatever X we were for the tiles, but self-adjacent offset Y. Yeah, self-adjacent offset X. Let's just try to pass that in again and see if we notice anything. It's not working quite right. So like how this used to be working is we were tweening between two values upon a transition. Let's see where we can find that. I think it's in the scene. Yeah, Spellcast tween, okay. Now we should have been doing a adjacent offset X. Where do we use this adjacent offset X? We should be, like upon a begin transition, I think we were setting this. Look, if we're shifting up, then the next map's adjacent offset Y gets... Oh, Jesus. I mean, this is where we're setting it. Okay. So where in the function is this? Begin shifting. Okay, so begin shifting. Like, let's say we initiate a transition. We begin shifting. We're setting our shift X and shift Y variables to become the adjacent offset. So once we begin shifting, what are the variables we put in here? It's just the screen width. So let's just talk about the left transition. We have a shift X of a negative virtual width, which is all the way off the left side of the screen, which makes sense because if we're left transitioning, the left one needs to come on screen from all the way off the left side. So the X being negative virtual width makes sense there. So if we begin shifting with a shift X of a negative virtual width, that's what we're assigning our next map's adjacent offset X to be. So that sounds right. So our width is like 144, so negative virtual width would be negative 144 upon a left transition. So I kind of want to print up for debugging the adjacent offset X and see if this value is tweening correctly. So if we shift left, and that means our shift X is still smaller than 0, every frame we're going to be taking our player X, setting it to be equal to the right side of the screen. Okay, this is kind of weird. And we're setting our Y to be the current Y. This is weird. Because we're not doing shit for our adjacent offset based on these. So I'm a little confused here. Jeez, man. Okay. So we're tweening our player and our camera. That's all working fine. That's working fine. This is wild. Okay. And then spellcast is maybe working. Let's see if our spellcast is transitioning right. Yeah. I mean, it's a little funky, but it looks to be working right. Actually, look at the spellcast is colliding now with the side of the wall, which was never happening before. Yeah, the spellcast entities shouldn't be colliding with the walls like that. But other than that, it's looking pretty right. Okay. Sad, because it looks like we went way backwards in development, but long-term speaking, if we figure this out, it'll be so much easier to just draw the map instead of type it out manually. So I think this is very well worth it. Okay, so what's weird is we're not setting... If we shift down, we set our adjacent offset Y. So what I'm going to test is go to our scene and go to when we're updating our next map. Where are we, dude? Adjacent, offset. Okay. Okay, it's in our map we're looking for. Okay. Where do we assign our adjacent offset? Okay. I'm gonna just put in here. By the way, we also get our Y. Now I'm gonna test just the adjacent offset Y here and see. Yeah, that doesn't work either. So what I want to do is render what the adjacent offset Y is for our next map, and X for our next map, but in our scene so it doesn't scroll off, because we want to see what these numbers are so that we can debug it. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to say that we need a love.graphics.print, and we're going to print up those two values, but we want to see what they are, so we're going to say offset X and concatenate it with that, and then we do want to give ourselves a proper location here. I'm going to comment these out so they don't get in the way. And then we do want this to be Y. So we'll do this. Okay. Let's see. It should be nil. Oh yeah, concatenate a nil value, but god damn it. I wish there was a null coerce in Lua, like there is in JavaScript, but like, what do I do? Do I say, like, if self dot adjacent, I don't think this will work. If self dot adjacent offset X, let's just see, offset X does not equal nil, then go ahead and render it. I think upon asking this question, it'll still crash, so I don't think that'll work. Actually, that worked. Are you kidding me? Okay. So let's do the same thing, but with Y. So we'll say, hey, by the way, if, and I can do a fancy replace here. Okay, and then we want 20 on the Y. Okay, we should see these values only if we're transitioning, but I'm not seeing them, so something's jacked up. Oh, it's not self. It should be self.next map .adjacent offset X. Okay. Next map .adjacent offset. Okay. I'm still not seeing it. Come on, dude. I just want to see something. Come on, why? You're in the scene, dude. Why do you not like this? What is... Oh, the next map's rendering over it. Okay. We'll just put it after that then. Yeah, give me that. We'll put it after the next map so we don't overwrite our debugging. And so I don't lose my sanity. I'll put this back where I got it, so help me. And we should now see at least hello. And we don't. What the... We rendered the next map. Then we're setting the color. Let me just say, show me hello, dude. Okay, so hello's there. So why, if it's not nil, go ahead and render the hello, but it's... Oh, damn it. Self.next map. Okay. sweet. Okay, now we should see it. We couldn't do it, just like I thought. We couldn't do it. Okay. So how do we print up this value even though it's a nil value? We could give it 0 instead of nil. But the next map itself doesn't exist. And that's why it's nil. Let's go to where we do next map and let's just put it... Dude, that's my biggest gripe with Lua, I think, is that it crashes on this. Like, why can't you just say it's nil? Like, why do you have to crash? Okay. Well, I don't know. I think we're not very close to figuring this out. But maybe we are. Oh lordy, okay. So we've got to do what? We've got to do... Where were the lines I was just tweaking with? Right here. Where is... We need this. Okay. So we crash here because there's no adjacent offset X in our next map because our next map doesn't exist. So I want to see if there's some sort of Lua null, not no coalesce, but let me see, null coalescing, nil. See the question mark, yeah, like that's what I'm looking for from JavaScript. Lua doesn't have that. I don't know how we would do it. Yeah, I'm not sure how we would do it. For now, what we can do is just plop it. Maybe we can plop it. No. Maybe if we just put our next map to be equal to map 1-1 or something, just to start out with, then at least it won't be null. Maybe? Yeah, it shouldn't be null now. Scene 203. Next map render. Okay, well, if there is an X map render it, why would you get mad at me for that? Oh my god. Attempt to call method render a nil value. Because render is not of a type map, so let's give ourselves a type map like this. Yeah, we'll just do this. Yeah, you know what? Let's just say our next map is our current map, you know? Next map is the same exact map we are, should be able to render it. Now we actually get those values. Okay, cool. We do crash See, like that 160, that negative 160 was our screen width, our negative screen width, which is correct, but it wasn't tweening correctly. And then our next map became a nil value. So where are we saying? This is tricky. I don't get how we can do this. I guess now that we've got next map actually giving us the right offsets, we can kind of start debugging this, because if this X offset in our map was actually decrementing properly, we should be able to draw by our adjacent offset, which we currently aren't able to do. So we need to tween our X offset. How so? I think we need to... Where are we even rendering this sucker? Right here. Yeah. This should be... Oh. Yeah, we need to... So what's confusing is... Yeah, the current map would be this line of code, but the next map would also be this line of code, and we'd render both if we're in the middle of a transition. But I don't see where we're doing the adjacent offset X update or the tween or anything like that. Bad, man. This is bad. Let's go to our scene and see if we're tweening the adjacent offset. Okay, if our shift Y is negative, we'll shift up. And that means our offset Y will be equal to what it used to be plus 16. Okay. This isn't working right. Because we're stuck at whatever shift X or Y gets set to, and then we're never updating it. So if we are in begin shifting, yeah, it's almost like we need to print out what shift X and shift Y is. Those global variables? They're just parameters for the begin shifting function. Okay. Yeah. See, but we're not doing this for a shift left or right. So let's test our shift up or down and see. Yeah, that's crashing. What's cool is the entities did scroll on screen, so that's good. But our map is not scrolling off screen. And our adjacent offset is not being printed. I wonder if we render instead of the offset X, I wonder if we render instead the shift X and shift Y, if that's anything different. I mean, it should work the same, and that tells me that we're not ever updating our adjacent offset. So shift X, can we do that? I don't think it likes that. This would exist outside. Yeah, this would crash. It's a parameter of the function. Yeah. Shit. Okay. So for whatever reason, our adjacent offset X and Y is not being updated upon a shift. So if we trigger a shift, we call this begin shifting function. And we trigger these shifts here. That's all working. It's just that the, whatever you want to call it, is not working. The tweening is not working. So if we yeah, I mean, I worded it so that I can kind of figure it out, right? So like if it's a negative shift X, it's a left transition. If it's a positive shift X, it's a right transition. And then down here we say, hey, if it's a positive shift X, we will see, and we should modify our adjacent offset here. And then we increase. See, but why does this work? Why does, like, if we get rid of this shift Y being changed, what happens? Nothing. Let's see if we can do. It didn't change the position though, right? It didn't change the render. Shit. So it should have changed the render for the map. Now we're rendering the map's entities. That's all good. Upon a finish shifting, we're resetting the current map to be the next map, resetting the next map to be nil. Okay, that's fine. We're not even giving ourselves the values. Let's give ourselves at least the self.adjacent offset X and adjacent offset Y. And let's see. It's still not rendering it any different. Are we rendering the next map and then the current map? We should. Well, the current map should scroll off. Okay, so if we take off rendering the next map, does the current map scroll off? It doesn't. We lost that. So if we take, what? If we take this off, does it do it? No, that's still jacked. Let's take off our next map render. Let's see if we scroll off. We don't. Fuckers, dude. I thought we had this working. I thought we had at least scrolling off working. Oh, that's in our scene. Okay, yeah, let's go to our map. We should be rendering, this is rendering the current map. That should be right. But we should also be tweaking it by the current map's adjacent offset. So if we say, I don't like that we have to do scene view here, but let's just try to get it to work again. The current maps dot adjacent offset X and the scene views dot current map adjacent offset Y. I just want anything to be working at this point. Let's go to map and we'll turn off our debugging so that hopefully, and I'm gonna delete this. Just go ahead and when you render a map, go render it at its own place. And in our scene, go ahead and just don't render render this. Okay. So we're back to nothing working, but nothing crashing. Okay. So we just need to figure out how to get these things to scroll like they used to. So upon a left transition, the next map's adjacent X offset needs to be negative screen width and slowly become 0. So let's test. Are we rendering next map just yet? Let's see what happens if we render next map. See if anything visibly changes. It does. Okay, so it changes it right away. Entities are scrolling, so that's good. Oh, hey. Hey, Rough Cookie. Thank you for the raid, dude. Hey, how did the end of stream go? I couldn't tell if this was a, was that game you're playing like a multiple ending type game? Because it seems like you can do a lot of different possible endings. Sweet. So did you guys beat it, or did the bot get to poop? It's the big question. Okay. Okay, nice. That's cool. I love it when it feels like you actually have a choice in those, you know, or that your choices do actually change the outcome. Yeah, okay. We're jacked. We're making backwards progress in the game. Not really, but it feels like it. We're trying to get our stuff to scroll on like it used to. The difference being we've now got... hey, Soup, thanks for that resub. I appreciate it, dude. 4 months is pretty wild. Thanks, dude. I'm using this kind of map editor to hopefully be able to draw the whole map. And instead of hard coding in the enums for every tile, which I used to be doing, I can show you what that looks like. Instead of doing that, I'd be able to just draw it and export it. So that's why I'm kind of migrating this system over to this tiled system. So I'm hoping that'll be good, because if you look at how we used to do it, I literally wrote every single enum title for every single sprite. So like so instead of doing that, this new ability will, you know, instead of doing this for 100 different levels or scenes, I'd be able to just use my pen and draw it once I've got all my tile sheets, and then I can export them and import them. So I've got the game importing them okay, but what I don't have working, so like, see, like we're in graph 2.2 right now. So this middle one. So if we go up, we will get the correct map. So we are exporting them correctly. It's just that they're not scrolling on and off screen correctly. So that's what I'm working on today. But yeah. It's the same sprite pixel dimensions. The one thing being there's technically an extra sprite level down here, so it's 10 across. So like 16 by 16 sprites, that's what Tashio is, right? 16 by 16. And then it's 10 across and 9 down, except that the 9th down is reserved for the HUD. So if you look at like the bottom right that I go to over here, it should be, well, that's crashing. I know why that's crashing, but that's what I'm working on fixing. If I draw something in the bottom right, I have to remember that I have to account for that bottom tile. So when I exported this thing, I shouldn't have put this on the bottom because the HUD is this bottom layer. So I should have put all of, you know, put it one higher here. But what the beauty of this is, like, now instead of having to recode, all that stuff, I can just kind of like copy and paste trees as needed and export. I'm still learning this, obviously, but this should be a lot easier, because once I'm building puzzles and stuff and dungeons, we want the ability to do a bunch of levels all at once without me just sitting there typing them all. This is called Tiled, and it is a tile editor for Love2d. So when I go to export these, it actually saves as a .lua, and I'm able to use this library that kind of, I import the .lua and it knows exactly how to render it. So the people who invented this app and that library make it really easy to just export each thing and pull it into my game. And then, so like another cool thing this gives me is that instead of this yellow background, what I can do is make that a transparent background, and then I could put a tree over sand, and we won't have that harsh overlap. Like I'll be able to do some layering with the pixel art. So I'm hoping, that'll be a little more powerful, especially when I'm making, up to 100 levels or more, possibly. Because looking at 100 all at once, I'm like, that's actually not that big. So I'm probably going to want to go bigger than that. But, we've got to get the transitioning working, and then we've got to get the object collisions working, because we've still got the old stuff. If we go check out, like if we go to the 1-1, which is left and up, what is happening to me? Right here, there's still collidable objects. Actually, I took them out, but there's still technically collidable objects that are there that I'm not rendering. I have to figure out, and I think Tiled can do this, where I can also have another layer of objects, and I can kind of draw or say, trees are non-collidable objects, and I can kind of export it that way. I think I could do something like that with this app, so I'm going to be experimenting with that, because I was also hard coding in all the collidable map objects, which it would be nice if I can just export. I just draw which ones you don't want to be walking over, export that, and then not have to worry about it. So anything that'll help that rapid development, right? Because it just takes so long to make a game. I don't want to be typing all the tiles, I want to be rendering. So it's something I probably should have done before I made so much progress with the other system, but I'm glad to be doing it now. It's just, not going so hot at the moment, but we'll get there. So yeah, it's pretty gross, to be honest. Hey, Leva, good to see you, dude. How are you doing? 10 by 10 is pretty big. Yeah, I mean, it gives you 100 levels, but looking at it, it didn't seem that big. Like, if you look at the Link's Awakening overworld, I feel like it's even bigger than 10 by 10, and they also have dungeons, which I'm not accounting for. So maybe 10 by 10 might be good for all the overworld stuff, but the underworld stuff might need new separate dungeons and stuff. So I don't exactly know. But, my game is supposed to have maybe 5 different biomes. So if you split it up into 5s, it starts to look a lot smaller. And I want the game to also breathe and to feel spacious. So it's not all going to be super crammed with stuff. There's going to be a lot of animals and stuff, but I don't want any one scene to be super crowded. I don't want it to be too dense. So I think we do have to go a bit bigger, but it's going to be tough. Yeah, so Leva, I graduated my class last Friday, and I can actually, now that some people are here, I can actually show you guys what I was working on. We deployed the full stack application that I built for Capstone, and I made this movie recommendation app. So here's like the landing page. You can sign in with your account. Don't try to guess my passwords because you'll be able to. But so you got this, like, this is like a mobile first responsive website, right? So we designed it so that it works best on mobile, but also scales up. And then, you know, it dumps you on this page, which gives you some movie recommendations. We're using the TMDB API. I built this with a team of 3 other programmers, all of which had no programming experience. But what makes our site cool is we've got these suggested connections. So every profile has a connection score. So as long as you're logged in, if you have rated the same movie as another person, you'll get this connection score. So if we want to check out Mr. Frodo's, he's got his highest rated movies, obviously. And then, you know, I'm already following him, but, you know, it's not perfect. But like this 68% connection score is generated in our database. We're not storing it in our database, but we're calculating it. So if me as Shrekman, I'm Shrekman, if I, you know, we have a 68% match. If I rate things closer to what Frodo rates it, you'll see that our score should go up once we refresh here. So I just rated it higher, and now we have a stronger connection score because, yeah, exactly. Dating app for movie junkies, exactly. So as you rate movies, the more mutual movies you've rated will generate these connection scores, and the idea is you find your best match, and then you look at their highest rated movies, and you can get recommendations based on your strongest connection scores, essentially. So there's a bunch of stuff, and then the idea is too, it's like if on one profile you're like, ooh, that looks like a cool movie, then you can come in here and say, I'm gonna add that to my watch later. And then if you go to your profile, go to your watch later, you've saved your recommendation in here. And the back end, we did, it was Express we used. So we had, you know, it was JavaScript, TypeScript, some Express for file-based routing. Our APIs was all in TypeScript. And then React for the front end here, and Tailwind for styling. But yeah, I mean, I was super proud of it. I worked a lot on it. And then we've got a discover page for you to find whatever. So you can come in and find movies and rate movies that way to build your connection scores with other people. And then this current deployment, you know, I want to get it deployed on the real domain, noconcessions.xyz that I've got. I just haven't got around to that. We just graduated. No, we're doing Postgres SQL for the queries and stuff for the database. So Postgres is the language for the database back there. Yeah, I've heard good things about Mongo, so I might need to look into that. But overall, pretty proud of how it came out, and we killed it for demo day. Some of the recruiters were asking me questions, and I was able to like actually talk about it. And okay, yeah. I'll check out Mongo, dude. But yeah, I'm happy with it. We got, you know, most of the features we wanted. I mean, obviously there's shit that I'm already seeing that could be better, but it looks really good on mobile, works really good on mobile. This component we found rates really nicely with a click and drag. So yeah, I think we're gonna polish it up just a bit more. You know, make it so that you can't follow yourself. And then a couple of other things like adding to watch list should go to the front of your watch list, not the end. Little stuff like that. And then we'll host it as a team so that we can kind of just plop it on our resume so that we can show what we did. But yeah, overall, super proud of it. yeah, I'm gonna make another thing using the same stack to kind of reinforce my learning. But also I'm trying to rebuild my websites. You know, we're gonna be getting the certificate this week, so I'll officially know if I pass. Which I was at the top of my class, so I'm sure I'll pass. So once I get that certificate, I'll be legit. But yeah, Soup, I do wanna collab with you if you want to make that idea. I don't know Go yet, but I know I've heard Go is like a simple syntax to kind of wrap your head around. So it's next on my boot.dev course curriculum, so I'll be getting around to Go. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, so right now we can't add any new accounts. So I want to figure that out. We can add an account if we verify with Mailgun, but I want to verify emails so that you guys can be able to, you know, make an account and start rating some movies and stuff. So that'll be fun. Yeah. So yeah, I think that came out great. And then I made my personal website project, which is just like a demo for some of my stuff. I like the mobile responsiveness on this one because you can kind of hop to any section and read about it. And then I made some actual executable downloads. So if you've got Windows, Mac, or Linux, I figured out how to compile these releases into one executable so you don't have to download the Love2d game engine and then drag and drop the folder and everything. So it's like a one-click thing now. So I like that I figured that out, and I made some documentation for me to do it. You know, I got my GitHub, LinkedIn, full website, all that stuff. And then this demo works on mobile too. So got a little Joust demo on there, which is fun to play on mobile, which is kind of cool. But yeah, like the mobile responsiveness of it was kind of like a big focus point of the bootcamp, to make sure that it looks good on mobile and it scales to desktop. So I really liked learning Tailwind to handle a lot of that. So I'll be updating my old websites using some of this new technology I've learned. But yeah, the two big assignments for the bootcamp was this, was the capstone and the personal website project, and I think both of which were knocked out of the park. So I think, I'll get a good grade on that. But yeah, 10 weeks, pretty intensive stuff. Somehow, or not somehow, but it definitely wasn't long enough. I needed more time than that. The other kids were struggling because they came in with, oh nice, it worked for you, Soup? That's cool. I tested it on my own stuff. Like I tested it on like Debian, because that was my only Linux I had available, and that worked on Debian, and I tried it on my Mac and Windows, and it seemed to be working. So I'm happy I figured that out, because that means I can kind of make little checkpoints in Tashio, and I can make those like little release builds and keep the GitHub repo updated with those so that people can continue to play as I reach little checkpoints in development. But yeah, it does feel like we're going backwards at the moment, but it'll be good in the long term. Yeah. So like, I think what's going on right now is that our adjacent offsets are just not decrementing properly upon a transition. So I want to see where we were rendering this debug for it. I don't know if it was in the scene or what. Yeah. Okay. So one pain point here is it's crashing anytime, there's not a next map until we initialize a scene change. And then as soon as that next map finishes moving on, it becomes nil again. And the fact that I'm trying to debug these things makes it crash anytime it's not nil. I can't really get around that. So it's hard to debug it. And if I debug it in the scene itself for the next map, it scrolls off the screen and then I can't read what the value is. So that's been a pain point here. But at least I know that the offset is being generated correctly. It's just not updating. So like, not only do we need to render the next map, right now the next map just plops on screen right away. We need to render the next map at the offset of that adjacent offset X so that it starts off the screen and scrolls on, which isn't happening right now. But yeah, sorry guys, it's going to be a lot of floundering today. I mean, I don't know how to do it. We had it working one way and we're doing it totally different, so now it's just, you know, kind of at square one, because we used to be rendering every single tile, every single frame. And now we're exporting the whole scene as one map. So it should be easier, but for whatever reason, the adjacent offset is not being updated over time. So we are rendering the next map. If we take off the next map, it won't change as soon as we initiate the scene change, but it would change as soon as we land, as long as we weren't actually trying to render the next map debugging. So that's been the big pain point. If we could have just figure out how to, you know, if we had the null coalescing operator like we do in JavaScript, we could just do that easily, but we don't have that. So yeah, that's working, right? It's loading the correct scene as we walk to it, or after we finish walking to it. But we need it to draw differently. So we need this offset X to be actually updating over time. So let's take a look at how we're beginning that transition once we do it. I think it's in our map. Every time I look at this code, I'm like, who did this? Who did this? Who's responsible for this? No, the scene, it must be in the scene transition. Yeah, okay. So when we trigger one of these scene transitions, we get a next map of the index of a map next to us. Now we are rendering the correct map for the current map, and we are rendering the correct map for the next map. We're just not rendering it at the correct place. So it really comes down to if we can get the adjacent offset working. Now, if we look at our begin shifting, this is kind of the magic of it. Like, the begin shifting has a shift X and a shift Y. So let's just look at left transition. Negative virtual width means that instead of the X being 0 at the top left, we want our X to be a whole screen worth negative. So just off screen to the left, because a left transition would scroll it from the left onto where you're looking at. So ours needs to go from that negative 144 down to 0 by the time we finish a transition. And we're kind of doing that, you know, we're able to use this library for tweening called a knife, and we're and we're able to have the tween here, at least for this stuff. Timer tween. Gosh, I stepped away from this code base for 2 months and my brain is just like, what did I do? Like, how did this work? But we basically need to tween our shift X and our shift Y to the correct values by the time we're finishing transitioning. So by the time we finish shift, you know, we need to shift it to the correct spot. But that means we need to tween our next map adjacent offsets to be accurate by the time we finish a transition. I'm not exactly sure how we used to be doing this, because if you look at our code up here, we do have, hey, if our, you know, like let's take shift left, for example, like we already looked at. If our shift X is still negative, go ahead and set our player Y. See, this doesn't make sense to me. We're setting our player X to be equal to the right side of the screen. So it's like, that's the tween end value. This player X is the tween end value for the X position for the player. And that's what we're doing here. We're saying, hey, go ahead and floor that player X as the endpoint, and that's the value you're gonna become upon finish shifting. So it's gonna take that player object, modify its X to be that given final X. So if we were to shift, you know, instead of player X being the right side of the screen, if we were to say that, hey, this is the left side of the screen by saying a negative here and a positive here, then when we shift left, our player wouldn't move to the right. It should stay exactly where it's at, which it does. It doesn't, you know, it gets a little more complicated than that, because as we scroll off on the next map. Oh God, it's so confusing. But that's how we're handling the tweening for the player, but we need to handle it for the adjacent offset. So we do change it over time. I don't get why we're not changing it for adjacent offset X. We should be changing it there too. Why is this commented out? So it's like shift Y is the argument we give our begin shifting, and that shrinks over time? Guess it depends on which direction it's going. I don't exactly get what I was going at here. I get that if we're shifting down, we need our offset Y to become a smaller number so that we can draw the screen coming in, raising from the bottom. I get that. I don't get why we had shift Y being updated to be positive if that was the argument of the begin shifting function. Where am I? Okay. Right off the bat of the begin shifting, we set our adjacent offset X. Okay. Now that makes sense. It's just that once we're shifting, we don't become finish shifting until the tween ends for the player, at which point we set our adjacent offset to 0, and then we nullify our next map. That's why we're crashing all the time. It's because we nullify this. So maybe if we don't nullify this, but see, then we're screwed up, because the next map doesn't have an adjacent offset, and we're still rendering it because it exists, because right now we're only rendering the next map if it exists. meaning we just started a scene transition. So that's just getting complicated for that. Let's add a next map adjacent offset X adjustment to a begin shifting on the X. So we'll say that the next map adjacent offset X will now get itself shifting left would mean it would grow. Yeah, it would get bigger, so it would scroll right. And then if we shift right, we want our adjacent offset to shrink because it's moving left. Yeah. Then I don't know if we need to change. What does this do? Shift Y. It's like, because we're plussing 16 just like we're plussing 16, and we're minusing 16 just like we're minusing 16. So it's like, why don't we just minus our shift Y and shift this by our shift Y? I don't know. But let's, because at this point, shift X never becomes greater than 0. So our adjacent offset X would always be increasing, which is wrong, but we're not even rendering based on the offset X right now. So we need to figure that out first. We go to our map. We say that when we go to render our map, we don't just draw it, but we draw it at the self.adjacent offset X for the X offset and the self.adjacent offset Y for the Y. Are we rendering the next map even? I don't think we are. Let's make sure in the scene we're rendering our next map. Yeah, not rendering the next map by the offset. It is not overriding the current map right away, which it used to, but it is not scrolling onto screen. So we're jacked up somewhere. In our scene, we're rendering the current map. Oh, but see, we're rendering the current map here. Okay, let me see if we turn this off. Current map render. Okay, yeah. I think this needs to be the next map. Are we rendering? Okay, well. What I'm gonna do is turn this back off. And we're gonna render the next map, if it exists. And let's see. Okay. Oh, that's good. The entities are there. That's good. The entities scrolled off, right? So that's good. Now, the entities scrolled off because the entities actually exist in the map, not in the scene. I know I named it these confusing things. It's a little off, at least on the X. So in my game, the scene is the reference of what you're looking at. It has the current map as well as the next map if you're transitioning, and the map is what holds all the entities. And there is possibly a current map and possibly a next map if you're transitioning. So those are the two differences. I'm sure I could have done that better, but I don't know. Doing my best here. This is a mess. This is a mess. I'm in like the middle of refactor hell where I'm like trying not to delete the stuff that used to be working. So that's why it's so full of comments, but also none of that shit's working now because I'm changing it because I'm in the middle of the refactor, so kind of tricky. Should probably just delete all the comments. If there is an X map, render it. So let's give different values to the X offset for the next map and see if it's actually the right arguments for that, because the colon draw function is from the STI library and it's different than the love.graphics.draw, and I've never used the colon.draw before, I believe, so I have to make sure that's working as I'm expecting it to. I believe the documentation said that the first two arguments were the translate for the X and Y. So if we go to our map, and instead of rendering it at this adjacent offset X, let's give it nothing, and we should see the next map overwrite the current map as soon as we transition, which we do. Cool. So if we just feed it little values like 10, let's just do 10 on the X, it should shift everything to the right by 1. Oh. Yeah, we want to shift the next map by 10. Okay. Well, so that is working like we thought. When we go to draw the next map, because this is the current map. Okay. Yeah. So ideally, we should be able to say the adjacent offset X, which should be 0 on a normal map. But the next map, adjacent offset X, shouldn't be... Actually, no, yeah, okay. I think it's... Okay, it's tricky because I think it's right. I think the adjacent offset X is getting to be the right value. It's just not tweening down. So if we would go into the adjacent offset X, when we do our if shifting left or right or whatever for our... Damn it, is that insane? When we're shifting here, what I'm gonna do is say, hey, if we're shifting left, see, and we are doing, I think the next map, that really sucks, because I would think that this would work. And it's extra confusing that once we print up the next map's adjacent offset, it is just a number that isn't changing even though we're modifying it here. So that's what's confusing to me. If we go into the map, no, right here. If we turn this on, it'll crash as soon as we don't have a next map, but our next map, we'll be able to see our offset right when we initialize it, and it is correct. It starts off correct. It just doesn't decrement. And what's weird about that is that we are decrementing it right here. We're saying that our next map's adjacent offset, or incrementing it rather, for a shift left, we're incrementing it by 16 if we're shifting. So why is it not incrementing? Maybe in the update function, I'll just dump. Let me just, in the update function. Oh my goodness. What am I looking at? Right here. I'm just going to say that the next map's adjacent offset X gets decremented in the update. And we'll see. Oh, see, it did do it. It did do it. If we change it to be a smaller value, we'll see it scroll off screen. Well, Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we can draw by the adjacent offset x and have it switch. So why is our tweening not working? I want to say that we're... Now, if we begin shifting, we should have a next map. Yeah, right before we begin shifting, we get a next map. I think what's messed up, we'll have to take a look at the map class and make sure that's functioning as intended. All a map is a row and column for what map it is, an adjacent x and offset for rendering, a number of entities. Okay. Wow, this is just something else. Okay, so this is how we used to do it. We used to cycle through every single tile on the screen and say, go ahead and render everything with a sand first off. And then we go through and go again and say, okay, now render the ID of the tile that is in the quads for this current scene. And we had to do this x minus 1 times tile size to get the right row, plus the adjacent offset x. Okay. Yeah, and then plus the adjacent offset y for any scrolling for a transition. So how come when we give ourselves the same adjacent offset x that we used to be rendering all of our tiles differently with, that it's suddenly just not working anymore? Not sure. And what's interesting is the map's adjacent offset x is working for the entities, because if we go to up here, our entities are scrolling on fine. Well, they're not scrolling off fine. Well, they scroll on and off fine unless we're walking down. So I would think that this adjacent x offset that we're rendering the entities with would be the same value that we're trying to render our next map off, which once it's a next map, it's still a self map object. So that's just confusing. Yeah, it's confusing to me that the geckos are going off. Because that means our adjacent x offset is working. It's just not working for the map. It's only working for the geckos, even though we're doing the same exact thing, which is just offsetting it by the adjacent offset. I am not sure. I thought this was going to take me a couple episodes to figure out, and it definitely is. But we're making some good progress. I'm going to take a look at my git diff and see if there's any weird shit I did with the adjacent offset that I might be screwing up. Because I don't see why it'd be broken from last time. Map render, okay, that's fine. So today all we did was rename our tiled map to become our main map, and we commented out all our main map declarations. We initialize our next map to a non-nil value so that we can try to debug the adjacent offset x. See, and this is weird. We did not have an adjacent offset adjustment for a left and right shift, even though I would think you need that for actually updating the X position, but it's not. And then all we're doing is we're rendering the current map instead of the tiled map. And then we're also... Shit, there's a bunch of stuff there. Yeah, I'm going to take out a bunch of these comments so I don't have these muddling up our Git, and then I'm going to comment out the adjacent X offset, see, because that's the only difference from how we used to do it to what we're trying to do now. So I don't get why it didn't have the adjacent X offset getting changed. And that's in the, what, begin shifting? Yeah. I'm going to take this off. I think we need it, but for some reason our code used to be scrolling without that being on there. Geckos still work. This is weird. If the geckos work, how come we can't get the trees to work? This is going to be so cool when we finally get it. Because then we can sit and take a whole day and draw out a huge map and then just explore it all. It'll be really cool. Yeah, the geckos are working. And the difference between the geckos and the trees are the geckos exist in the map itself, but technically so does the sprite for the map. I'll have to do some thinking on why that's not working for the map itself. Because if we look at the map, we're rendering itself, right? We're rendering the map at its own row and column, and we're going ahead and doing that colon draw, which is what that tiled STI library gets us. And we're rendering it at the adjacent X offset, just like we're doing for all the entities. And look, we're saying, hey, all the entities at our map, self row, self column, just like the above, go ahead and render them with the adjacent offset X. And we know adjacent offset X does, we know that first and second argument are doing exactly that because we manually put it in there and we saw it scrolling. So we know we can scroll the map. I just don't get why trying to do it the same way as the entities are not working. It's close. It's close. We'll keep going. We'll keep going on this probably tomorrow because I feel like I'm just kind of going around in a circle with this right now. But we're close. The geckos are working. Yeah. Okay, it's close. Yeah. I'm gonna have to do some digging on why this isn't functioning as expected. Let me see if I do want to see if in the update we say, you know what, the self.adjacent offset X is going to be updated ever so slightly over time. And we're rendering the current map at the adjacent X offset. There we go. Oh, upon a scene transition, yeah. So when a scene transition starts, it'll start to scroll off. And the tricky thing is the current map has to scroll off at the same time the next map is scrolling on. So we know that if adjacent X offset is working, it would scroll off screen. If it was decrementing as it was supposed to, it should be working. And then if we weren't overriding the X offset for the next map, that should be working as well. So we've got all the pieces. We just got to figure out why it's broke. So we're closer than we were before we started stream, but not, we didn't get it done today, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and commit for the night. Yeah. We're going to say that we added tiled maps into global map 2D array and working on getting tiled maps to shift on and off screen. Okay. Sweet. All right. I'm gonna do the get stat. Okay. Well, thanks for hanging, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out while I meander around. I'm gonna see if any homies are streaming. I've got a game dev friend who's streaming. I might send y'all there. He's a good guy. He's making a game like Celeste in Godot. He's a lot better than me, but he's always super nice when I raid. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. We'll make some more progress, and then we'll have a nice fun day where we're drawing the whole map. That'll be really fun. So thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for the raid, Rough Cookie. I appreciate it.